Welcome to Criminals Hate Me. It's the podcast that criminals don't want you to watch. Today's episode is called, Hey Dude, That's My Shoe. So Noah Presgrove's death, where he was found on the side of an Oklahoma highway, was a very tragic event that rocked the whole community. And investigators still can't seem to figure this mystery out. So I am starting to wonder if the whole key to solving this case is to figure out how in the world Kaden's shoe ended up on Noah Presgrove's dead body. So let's go ahead and dig in and see what we can find out. So the night of the party, Kaden says that he was sleeping on the couch, and when he woke up, one of his shoes was gone. And then, somehow, that missing shoe ended up on Noah's body, which was found a mile down the road from the party house. And Kaden claims that he thinks that Noah must have taken one of his shoes while he was asleep so that he could take a walk to go clear his head and cool off. But there is no proof of that at all. It's just a theory that Kaden has. Nobody saw Noah take Kaden's shoe or anything. Kaden was asleep, and that's just how he thinks that the shoe ended up on Noah. But is there actually something else going on here? What are some other reasons that the shoe could have ended up on Noah's body a mile down the road? So what we're going to do in this episode is to ask some questions that I have not seen anyone ask before. And we all know that Noah liked to wrestle, and he was very good at wrestling. So that leads me to these questions. Did Kaden and Noah switch shoes accidentally? Perhaps during a scuffle or some type of game. Okay, Kaden said there was a lot of different stuff going on at that party. You know, riding around in the truck, shooting stuff, riding around on the ATV. You know, he said there might have been some wrestling going on. So there's all kinds of possibilities. But the only thing that Kaden does not say is that him and Noah were involved in some type of wrestling or scuffle or something. But with his shoe being found on Noah's body, we have to come up with an explanation of how it got there. And so, did it accidentally get on his body because they mixed their shoes up somehow during a scuffle or wrestling or something, or the slap game, or just there's a lot of possibilities. Because Kaden, I do believe in his interview, he mentioned that the shoes, Noah's shoe, the Adidas, and Kaden's shoes, the Hey Dudes, looked very similar. But I think there's some discrepancies with other people saying that they actually didn't look similar. So, it was dark. Maybe they couldn't see very well and the shoes got mixed up. Who knows? But here's the next question. And it's very similar. Could the shoe have fallen off during a fight or during wrestling and been mistakenly picked up by the wrong person? Is that how Noah ended up with Kaden's shoe on his body? That we have to go over all possibilities, guys. And since there was wrestling going on and clothing can fall off during wrestling, we have to just consider this. But I'm going to say right here, right now, that I do not think that this happened. Okay? But it needed to be pointed out. The question needed to be asked. So, and maybe with me saying stuff and asking these questions, it'll trigger something in somebody's head or memory that's watching these videos, okay? So, was it possible that Kaden and Noah wrestled at some point? Or did they get into a fight at some point? Nobody's mentioned that, but we have to consider all possibilities, okay? So let's move on. All right, so now we're going to get into the good stuff here. because everybody likes a mystery. Okay, so question number one: was the shoe intentionally placed on Noah's body as part of a larger plan? And that basically leads into question number two: could someone have done this to frame Kaden or to mislead the investigation? So basically, was the shoe planted on Noah's body because someone wanted to try to frame Kaden for Noah's death? Well, does it make sense to frame Kaden when Noah's death was made to look like a hit and run? So does that make any sense for you to try to frame Kaden by putting one of Kaden's shoes on Noah's body to try to make investigators, look into Kaden, and to make Kaden the prime suspect? Does it make any sense if the body was staged to look like a hit and run? I don't think so. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you frame Kaden but then also make it look like a hit and run? Unless you're trying to frame Kaden as the one who made it look like a hit and run, as one of the people who staged the body. That's the only thing that makes any sense. Okay? Because you're not framing him as he killed Noah. The only possibility is that you're framing Kaden as the one who staged the scene. So that leads to this next part, which is also strange. Does it make sense to try to frame Kaden and to point the finger at Kaden when none of the kids who were interviewed by law enforcement even mentioned that Kaden was even at the party? So what do I mean by that? So what I mean by that is, if you listen to Kaden's 2-hour interview, the private interview per Warlock Wrath that he keeps saying over and over, the leaked interview that's on my channel that everybody in the world now has. Okay, but just because it's on my channel, it's got to be pointed out. That's a different episode, guys. So if you want to see Kaden's full interview with law enforcement, if you want to listen to it, it's here on my channel. So just look it up. But in that interview, you can clearly hear that law enforcement was not even really aware of who Kaden was. That was the first time they talked to him, even though he claims he talked to someone else months earlier. If he did, he didn't talk to the right person, or whoever the person he talked to didn't do their job to let the main investigators of the case know that Kaden was at the party. Okay? Because you can clearly hear in the interview by the reactions of the officers that they did not even know who Kaden was, and they didn't know who Georgia was and some other people, that Kaden had to basically tell them who they were. Okay? But my point is, if you are trying to frame Kaden for Noah's death, or even for staging the body at the crime scene, okay, wouldn't you just go ahead and also make sure to mention Kaden's name to law enforcement when law enforcement is going around asking questions about who all was at the party? I mean, I think that's just an obvious. That's a give me. There's no question about that. If you're trying to frame Kaden, then you're going to also make sure that law enforcement knows that Kaden was at the party. But they didn't know. Kaden had to go to OHP and set this interview up and go there himself and talk to them. So they didn't even know who he was. So it does not make sense that the shoe was planted to frame Kaden. Okay? But here's something that would add a wrinkle to that conclusion. Now, if these kids were in panic mode and they didn't know what to do next, let's just say there was some type of accident and they had to figure out how to stage the body so that they didn't get in trouble. Okay. Now, what if you have multiple kids involved that all had different ideas of how to do that. And what if one of them was like, I'll just frame Kaden, and put his shoe on there. But then when you do that, someone else comes along and they're like, no, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the body a mile down the road and dump it there to make it look like a hit and run. So by that time it's too late because the shoe's already on the body. So, are you kind of following what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's a possibility. If they were in panic mode and it's like they got 10 minutes to set this up, and they didn't know how they were going to set it up, and each kid had different ideas of what to do. And so what if the shoe was just a byproduct and it was left on his body accidentally? What if they didn't really want that shoe to be on there? Okay, because the shorts were missing. So if they got rid of the shorts, then that also kind of tells me that they got rid of Noah's right Adidas shoe, and that's why he didn't have a shoe on his foot in the first place. There's just a lot of possibilities. But I think ultimately the shoe had to be put on his body when all was said and done to make it seem plausible that he had two shoes on and that he himself walked himself a mile down the road and got hit. I think that's the number one reason why he had to have another shoe on his body, because I think that they disposed of Noah's original shoe and his shorts because they had some type of evidence on them that would have immediately solved the case. I think if that shoe's found, which there's no telling where in the hell it's at. Is it in the bottom of the lake somewhere, or is it burned in a burn pile probably somewhere, or who knows where in the hell Noah's original right Adidas shoe is. But it's very, very, very odd that it's missing, isn't it, guys? And it's very, very, very odd that one of Kaden's shoes mysteriously replaced it. So how in the hell did it get there, and why? I don't think that someone's intentions were to frame Kaden. I don't think that it was planted to frame somebody. I think it was just a last minute thing where they had to act very, very, very quick, and they just grabbed the nearest shoe, because they had to make it look like Noah walked down there. So here's another very, very strange situation. Is there a connection between the shoe and the cause of Noah's death? And I strongly, strongly believe that there is, okay? Because the autopsy states that both shoes, the Adidas and Kaden's Hey Dude, had debris and grass inside the shoes. And in my opinion, I truly believe that there is a huge connection between Kaden's shoe and Noah's death, because I strongly feel that it will reveal the true location of where Noah actually died. Okay, if they can figure out why there was debris and grass inside both shoes, which is very, very, very strange. If Noah was wearing both of his Adidas, okay, and he had an accident, where the shoes fell off, and then he put the shoes back on, okay, let's say it happened in a grassy field or something, it makes total sense that there would be debris and grass inside the shoes, right? But it's very, 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 very odd that someone else's shoes that shouldn't even be on his body also has the same type of debris and grass in the shoe. So what is my point? What does this mean? In my opinion, this means that wherever Noah actually died, I think that it means that Kaden was also present at that place, because his shoe also has debris and grass in it. So I think that Kaden has some explaining to do. He's going to have to give us a little bit better explanation of how his shoe ended up on Noah's body. A better explanation than Noah stole his shoe while he was sleeping. I do not believe that at all. I don't think it's logical. I don't think it adds up. I don't think it makes sense. And I think that is just a story that very conveniently helps Kaden with his alibi. And I believe that if I think it's probably too late now. But if a proper investigation would have been done, and they would have investigated where the debris and grass that were inside both shoes, where that grass and debris came from, okay? What was the most logical area? I believe that they could have found the real crime scene, because you're not going to get debris and grass inside your shoe on a highway. I think we're all in agreement there. How do you get debris and grass inside your shoe if you were involved in a hit and run where your body ends up face down on the side of the highway? It's not possible, guys. The shoes would have had to come off at some point to get the debris and grass inside there, and then placed back on the body. So someone's got some explaining to do. I'm not pointing fingers at Kaden, but what I am doing is I'm going by the facts that Kaden's shoe was on a dead body, and he needs to explain it. And I cannot believe that law enforcement has allowed him to get away with his piss poor explanation that Noah stole his shoe or took it accidentally or whatever. I don't believe that. And so to wrap this up, guys, in Kaden's interview, he said that they were on the ATV and that they jumped a culvert, or that they tried to jump a culvert or whatever, but that nobody got hurt. To me, that's some very important information, that he said nobody got hurt. Why would you add that in there? If you jump a culvert and you don't wreck it or flip it or anything, then why even mention that nobody got hurt? So I think he's leaving something out. He also claims that this happened in the daytime hours, that was hours earlier. But what if it actually happened later in the night, closer to the time that Noah died? Where's the other witnesses that can vouch for this ATV situation where they tried to jump a culvert, that it happened in the daylight hours earlier? Until we get witnesses, I'm not gonna say that it's not possible that it could have actually happened later in the night. And if you don't know what a culvert is, it's basically just like a drainage tunnel that's under a road or under a railroad or whatever. Okay, so what I did is I spent some time looking around on Google Maps around the area where Noah's body was found, and I find it very interesting that there is a culvert not far from where Noah's body was found. But the only thing is that it's actually across the highway and about 50 to 100 feet or so south of where the body was found. So could this possibly be the culvert that they were trying to jump? Okay, if not, I would sure like for Kaden to explain the location of where that culvert was. But until then, I find it very, very, very interesting that there is a culvert not far away from where Noah's body was found, and that Kaden gave the story that they were trying to jump a culvert, but that nobody got hurt. I think those two pieces of information are huge. So guys, let me know what you think. Leave some comments. But I know that I put that out on my community post earlier, that where I was asking you guys, do you think that the shoes were planted or that Noah took them? And most of y'all believe that the shoes were planted. It is plausible, but like I said, when you think about it, it doesn't seem plausible to plant them on his body to frame Kaden when nobody even mentions Kaden's name to law enforcement. But there could be something else to it. Maybe this was such a horrible investigation that these kids couldn't believe that law enforcement didn't even figure out who all was even at the party. And maybe these kids just figured, hey, we got away with it, and now let's just shut our mouths and we don't even have to try to frame Kaden. Or does Kaden know? Does he really, really know the real reason that shoe ended up on Noah's body? Is there something more sinister here? Is Kaden hiding something? Or is Kaden worried? Is Kaden's mom worried that these kids were trying to frame Kaden and point the finger at Kaden? And is that why they've done everything that they've done? Provide all this evidence and screenshots and Life 360 and call logs and all these explanations justifying everything that happened that night. Is that what's going on? Do they really fear this rich family that supposedly owns all the land around there and has a lot of money? And are they trying to say that these rich people are pointing the finger at them, trying to blame them? And, you know, is that what's going on? You know, there's a lot of possibilities. But I think that figuring out how the shoe actually got on Noah's body while Kaden was supposedly sleeping will solve this case. Okay? So guys, leave some comments, questions, and I'll talk to y'all later.